Warning, this podcast contains spoilers for House of the Dragon Episode 9. If you have not watched that, watch that first, then come back. Folks, the king is dead. Long live the king. R.I.P. to King Viserys. Day
R.I.P.
breaks.
to that man.
R.I.P. to that man. We're stepping out of the airlock and into the small council chamber where, not nice things are afoot. We're here to talk about House of the Dragon, Episode 9, The Green Council, written by Sarah Hess and directed by Claire Kilner. Word is kind of trickling out amongst the household staff. A young page tells Alicent's handmaiden Natalia. She goes and tells the queen. The queen quickly tells Otto.
And they tell two friends, and they tell their friends.
And he's like, immediately he swings into action. He wants to know who knows. And all of a sudden Alicent breaks this little bit of news to him. Oh yeah, the last time I saw him, he said that Aegon should be king. Otto doesn't ask which one. Otto doesn't ask, okay, well, he wasn't the most lucid guy considering like he was on the edge of death for X amount of years and also like doped to the gills on Milk of the Poppy. Could he have been talking about any one of the numerous other Aegons throughout history? He just is like, good, great, we're running with that.
Yeah, and he doesn't be like, oh, that's very interesting that you were just the only person there. In fact, he must just think his luck has come. That in that moment, he just thinks everything is working in his favor because, as we quickly find out, as always, this motherfucker has been planning.
Well, that's the point I wanted to make too. I saw a lot of people saying like, "Oh, this is like a plot point out of like Three's Company with this kind of comedy of misdirection and miscommunication." I agree that there is something of that, but I also think, do you really think that if Alicent had never heard the whole Aegon, babbling from the dying king, that Otto would have just been like, I'll forget all the plans we've been laying for decades and years. Let's just call it all off and we're not going with it. He would have gone with it anyway. This little thing is just one small little other piece that he can then use to argue that this is all legit. The king said so. There were no witnesses. That's absolutely true. And there are multiple Aegons alive right now. But
he means this one.
Take my word for it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I actually think I am quickly becoming a true Alicent apologist. And I just think that the way that they have treated her in this show and given her so much more context and meaning is actually really just so wonderful, and Olivia Cook is so great.
She's great.
Bringing her to life. And I think this episode actually does a lot of really great work to show that while it may have seemed kind of like, oh, well, now Alicent doesn't, she's not a bad person because she thinks of the prophecy and that is really just a small plot point for Alicent that adds conflict to her story and changes the reasons that she pursues the things she pursues. Because as we find out in the small council meeting, this was always going to happen.
Always going to happen.
It was always going to happen. It's just now there's a tiny part of Alicent's brain that believes it's what's supposed to happen.
Small council is hastily assembled. Otto has a strict no one in, no one out rule. I want to shout out just very quickly the master of ships, Tywin Lannister, who is a dumb motherfucker. It's like the king has looked dead. He's got no arm. He's got one eye. He's like can't breathe. He's been in bed for years.
The fact he survived 20 years is a miracle.
You get called to an emergency meeting early in the morning and you're like, hey, what's happening? Why did you come on, what's happening. Don't be obtuse. Anyway, Otto is like, hey, so we grieve for Viserys, but it's time to get down to business. And Tywin says, then we may proceed now with the assurance of his blessing on our long laid plans. And now this is a great moment because you realize, as Alicent is realizing how long these plans have been in motion for, you're realizing that Alicent really is this naive. You forget that she's been put in this position since she was a child.
Yep.
Otto is her protector, the person who she trusts. It is just now that she realizes, oh, wait a second. They've been hiding things from me. They've been planning things that I have no idea about.
Yeah. This episode is an awakening for Alicent, and I wish it hadn't have taken this long, but there is some really brilliant stuff here where we just learn about how she has been manipulated and abused and exploited by every man around her for as long as we can imagine. And there's only one person who will be real with her this episode, and it is Rhaenys. And it is a really great moment when we get
Oh my God, one of the best speeches in the entire show. Lyman Beesbury, Master of Coin.
Only real one. Only
real
man.
one in the
He's
building.
The only real one in the building.
I will not have this, he says. And he calls Aegon an imposter, points out that, hey, remember when the realm swore fealty to Rhaenyra in the fucking throne room? He tears to ribbons the claim that the king at the last minute on his deathbed with no witnesses except the boy's mother changed his mind. He had years and years and years to change his mind, and now he changed his mind? Get out of here. Grandmaster Orwyle is trying to get him settled down, but Lyman continues, beginning now to wonder darkly if the king was murdered.
Honestly fair.
Honestly fair, and it's clear, I think, to the Greens now that Beesbury's going to be a problem. So Criston Cole murders him, smashes his head into the table, into his little marker ball, and R.I.P. Lyman Beesbury. It was wonderful to see this integrity. Too little, too late, but Beesbury throughout the season has been like asleep at meetings, not really understanding what's going on, behind like talking about a topic that they moved on from 10 minutes ago. And it's fucking great to see him in his final moments standing toe to toe with all these very powerful people and speaking truth to power. It got him killed, but fucking RIP to Lyman Beesbury, a real one.
He was a real one, pouring out for Lyman. And also, we will say it again. I've been saying it. I am the nut. If there's a million Criston Cole haters on this earth, I am one of them. If there is only one Criston Cole hater on this earth, it is me. And if there's no Criston Cole haters, it's because I'm dead. Like,
the only thing I
hate this guy.
The only thing I want from Criston Cole is his skincare routine, because everybody's aging and everybody in Kingsland is aging, but him. Hatred has like
bitterness has kept him young.
Has kept him young. Commander Westerling draws his sword on Cole. Criston draws his sword on Commander Westling and says, I'm not going to allow vile slanders against the Queen. Nobody mentioned the Queen.
The Queen's literally like, sorry, he didn't say anything about me. Like, please shut up and just take your sword away.
So Cole stands down, but you can see on Westerling's face that he's like, oh, shit, this is not going the way I thought. The debate continues. And now Alicent, understanding what has been afoot, begins to make her presence felt. She's like, okay, what are we going to do with Rhaenyra? Otto's like, well, we got to take her prisoner. And, we'll give him the opportunity to bend the knee. Alicent is like, she's never going to bend the knee. So what happens then? And it's now that she realizes, oh, my father is plotting to have Rhaenyra, Daemon, and all their children murdered.
The thing that he very heavily manipulated poor old Alicent into believing would happen to her, it was just him reflecting his own behavior. It was just him. That's what he wanted to do.
She never thought about the flip side, that if we must seize power so that Rhaenyra and her children won't kill me and my children, she didn't understand that conversely that means when we seize power, we have to kill Rhaenyra and her children. But of course, Alicent doesn't know what to do next. Thailand is like, okay, so what do you want to do, Queen? And Alicent doesn't really know. Otto definitely knows. And he says, and it's a chilling moment, he says, okay, Sir Harold, I want you to go to Dragonstone at once with your best guys, and I want you to kill Rhaenyra, Daemon, and everybody there very quietly as you can, and then it'll be mission accomplished. Westerling thinks about this for like a half a second, and he's like, nope, there's no king. I'm the commander of the Kingsguard. There's no, so until such time as there is a king, I don't have a job, so I'll see you later, and he leaves. Again, shouts to Commander Westerling for showing some integrity.
I was going to say, in my opinion, took him too long, but you know what? I am excited to see this happen. I am excited to see where we may see him pop up. I have fond memories of the small moments he spent with Rhaenyra before. I hope that he may see fit to
Yes.
to fix his ways and go and make the corrections to his behavior. But it's a great moment when he takes off his cloak.
One of the few good moments for the Kingsguard in this series and in the stories writ large. Alice and Otto go to find Aegon, the apparently the new king. He's not in his room. Princess Helena doesn't know where he is. Alicent has a private moment with his daughter, breaks the news, and then Helena says, "There's a beast beneath the boards," but of course no one really understands the importance of this.
And Helena is telling her, like, she's grabbing her up and saying, like, please.
It's unclear to me that Helena truly understands what she's saying at any given time. That said, if she doesn't know herself the meaning of what she is saying, maybe it
she
comes
knows
to her
it's
in a
important.
vision. You can tell in the desperate tone that she has, the way she grabs her mother's hand, that she knows that it's important. Otto approaches Sir Eric of the Kingsguard, who's been Aegon's sworn shield for some time now. He's like, "Where's the prince?" Eric doesn't know. He says, "I want you and your brother to go in the city, find Aegon. Don't tell anybody, especially the queen, what you're doing. You find the king, you bring him to me." Meanwhile, Princess Rhaenys wakes up in her room and she finds that she's locked in. She looks out the window and sees the household staff being rounded up. You have to imagine at that point, the wheels must be turning. She must understand like what has probably happened. Criston Cole, everybody's favorite, breaks the news of Aegon's disappearance and of Sir Eric's mission to Alicent and Aemond. Alicent then says, "Okay, Criston Cole, you need to go find Aegon before Eric does. Take Aemond with you," because Aemond, of course, knows everything that his brother's been up to. Later in the throne room, Otto has what lords and ladies were apparently in the Red Keep at this time, gathers them together, and probably specifically the ones that are there that pledge their fealty to Rhaenyra in the past, or at least known to be Black loyalists. And he says, "Okay, so we're crowning Aegon today, and everybody has to swear fealty to him and to renounce Rhaenyra. Who's going to do it? Most do it," which I get it. This is, you know that you're going to be strung up in the courtyard if you don't do it. But if you don't, House Fell remains on its feet. Lord Caswell eventually kneels, but then we see later that he'll try and escape and get word to Rhaenyra. Meanwhile, we see an underground fight club where Eric and Eric are kind of like touring around. They know that Aegon likes to spend his time there. It's a horrific place where kids apparently fight to the death. And one of Mysaria's agents comes and says, apparently makes contact with them and tells them, "Hey, my boss has some information for you." Also, we see that there are Targaryen bastards down there in the dungeon. One of them probably Aegon's, probably the one we saw. And
Eric says there's probably a lot more
now
of Aegon's bastards.
Keep that in mind, because as this war pops off, dragon riders are going to become necessary, and suddenly these orphans who have Targaryen blood could become very valuable.
Yeah, and also they're going to be, if they survive these fighting pits, they're also going to be incredibly battle hardened. They sharpen these kids' teeth, they sharpen their fingernails, they have them
terrible.
just clawing at each other. It's horrific stuff. And we see Aegon's bastard, who we see presumably is about 4 years old. These are like babies.
It's
really horrific stuff. And this is when Eric and Eric start having the really important conversation about Aegon not being the right person to be king.
Here's something that I found noteworthy. The closer you are to Aegon, right? Obviously, like, Eric, as his sworn sword, has had a front row seat to Aegon's, various doings over the however many years. The closer you are to him, the less likely you are to want to support the guy. I think that is very, very, very telling.
Incredibly telling.
Listen, I've been up close and personal with this guy, and it can't be him. And that is a really, really interesting conversation. Later, Alicent goes to see Rhaenys. This is after watching the Silent Sisters prepare the king's body. And she asks for Rhaenys' support. She makes a really good pitch. She says, like, listen, you can have Driftmark. Driftmark will go to your daughters. Like, everything will be fine. Just support us. Like, that's what we need. And Rhaenys, it's unclear what side Rhaenys really is going to come down on, but she says at this time, listen, the word of my house is not fickle. And also left unspoken here is the fact that, like, though Rhaenys and Corlys have had their disagreements, they've been a very strong partnership in terms of decision-making for these years. And Corlys is alive. He's not dead. So the time has not come for her to take that position and make these decisions in his absence. Alicent then makes a pitch to the heart. She's like, listen, you should have been queen. And in a different world, maybe the realm would accept a woman as ruler. But she says, we do not rule, but we may guide the men that do gently away from violence and sure destruction and instead toward peace. And then Rhaenys says something that is stuck with me, which is, you're in a prison and you don't see it. You know, you're doing everything to serve all these men, your son, your father, your husband. And you don't want to escape from your prison. You just want to build a window. You just want to put a window in it. And I was like, damn.
Good. And Rhaenys just sells it because I know that she does believe that Alicent means that she thinks she could be queen. Like, there's a moment of connection there where there's this understanding. And then after Rhaenys says that brilliant truth, which I think is the
very, very true, very, very apt.
And we learn even more so that it's not just her family that has been exploiting Alicent and you know, that she's kind of shaping the world for these different men. It's also other grotesque men as well. But what I love is Rhaenys leans in to her and says, have you never pictured yourself on the Iron Throne? And Olivia does such a great job in that moment that you honestly, like, don't actually know. Like, is Alicent actually that naive that she has never done it?
I think so.
Or does she? And they do such a great job just sticking on Olivia's face as she thinks about, you know, and that is just such a good scene.
I have to say, that scene really made me appreciate Cersei Lannister. Now, Cersei is a terrible person. Awful. Brutal, ruthless, murderer, torturer, terrible, evil person. But she was very clear-eyed about the way this world worked. And she didn't pussyfoot around with appearances and how people might feel and wondering, will the realm accept this? That was what people expected of women she knew. And so when she went to seize power, she just did it. Yeah. When she had power, unlike Alicent, who has power but is trying to, like, wield it softly through other men, through the men in her life, through other people, Cersei just said, I'm wielding power. I'm going to wield power in my own hands. I'm going to do it. I'm going to tear up this order that Ned Stark is trying to give me. I'm going to just do the things that people don't expect women to do. They don't expect them to act this directly. And if Alicent had that with her current moral compass, it'd probably be a better world, honestly.
I wonder, I've been thinking a lot about the choices they made to build out Alicent, which I do love. I do wonder if they were worried that it would be hard to not just make her a Cersei light if she was like a real conniving, power-hungry person. But I would love to see a little bit more of that. That self-determination and violence that needs, because you know that you can rule better than everyone else. And we always know that ends badly. But you know what? Sometimes in Game of Thrones, you need it. And it's funny you should bring up Cersei, because there is a moment at the end of this episode that I do understand that we are going to talk about. But like, in that moment, I was just thinking, like, Cersei would never. Cersei.
We will talk about it. We will talk about that. Let me just say as a quick aside, to quickly talk about Cersei. Having spent so much time thinking about these characters, it makes sense that Cersei would have this very jaundiced but also clear-eyed understanding of the way the world works, because she has, since she was a child, had a secret that, if it was discovered, could lead to the most direst of consequences. And so she is just a very, very keen and clear-eyed observer of human nature, of the way things work, because she has always thought and had that radar up for any hint that she might be discovered. So that's how I always thought about Cersei. Anyway, Otto now goes to meet with Mysaria after Eric and Eric bring the message. Mysaria is still French. She says she has Aegon hidden somewhere in Flea Bottom. And for his return, she asks for an end to the systematic abuse of children in Flea Bottom, the fight clubs that the Gold Cloaks ignore, that they are bribed to ignore. Otto gives his word that he looks into it. And I just want to say that, on the one hand, this is so frustrating for Mysaria, but it also feels very true to a kind of character that I have known and interacted with, a kind of person who hates, quote unquote, the system. Mysaria is a true revolutionary, kind of like Rhaenys in that sense. She's not saying like, oh, we're going to reform this, this feudal system that we live by, like around the margin. She's saying, no, I want everything overturned. I want freedom and peace for the children of Flea Bottom. Things that absolutely no one is ever going to give to her. And she mistakes the fact that the system is broken and her hatred for the system. She has unfortunately conflated her hatred of the system with underestimating the way this world works. Because had she really understood what she had and how this world works, she would never have just given Aegon up for a promise that they would fix the fighting pits for the kids.
She went to the wrong person. It's
went to the wrong
ironic
guy.
because Alicent is ironically the person who probably could have been emotionally charged into making this decision. One, because it's her son, and two, because she probably would think the Flea Bottom abuses are horrific. But also, babe, if Aegon is king, that ain't never happening. This is the guy who goes there.
He goes there.
He's the number one fan. You should have just killed him.
You're
He's
asking
literally
him
the
to
reason
close
that
down
it exists.
his favorite club? He's not going to do that.
It's not happening, babe.
And to give him over without any kind of collateral at all.
I mean, you could have just asked for some gold at least, and you could have got those kids out of there.
So unfortunately naive. Not to mention the way that when she says there's no power but what people allow you to take, this, again, very revolutionary statement of people power in a world in which the small folk, the people, the common people don't mean anything to the people who rule, right? They're other than as an engine for their economies, to till the fields and fucking make the food and etc. When she says that to Otto and makes him promise to look into the abuse of children in Flea Bottom, and he says that, and to remember that there's no power but what the people allow you to take. He says, I don't worry, I'll remember. And he says it in that ominous way that you understand he means, I will remember you. And once I have the king back, I'm going to take revenge.
Yeah, exactly. It's I can't have somebody who even thinks that they have control over the people, because as we all know, this is the nature of revolution. There are always far more people than there are rulers. There's a reason that nowadays we call it the 1%. If everybody worked together and wanted to change things, they could. So you can't have a leader. He's telling you, I'll remember because I'm going to kill you. But guess what? He doesn't even have to do that. Doesn't even have to make the effort.
So they find the prince in the Great Sept. He's delivered, after a fight outside the Sept, he's delivered to the queen.
Sorry, Otto.
Alicent then goes to see Otto. She finds him sending letters. He understands that she has the prince. He pitches family unity in the transition to come. Alicent is like, no. Reluctance to murder is not a weakness. I have Aegon. We will now proceed as I see fit, and that means offering terms to Rhaenyra that she will actually accept so we can avoid war, and that's what Viserys would have wanted, and you know that's what Viserys would have wanted. Otto's like, you're letting your friendship with Rhaenyra, cloud your judgment. And Alicent just runs over this. She's like, I'm putting my people in charge. Criston Cole is the new Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. Aegon is going to be anointed tomorrow. I've set it all up. We're going to do it in the Dragon Pit because we want everybody to see it. He's going to wear Aegon the Conqueror's crown. He's going to have the sword. He's going to have the whole thing. Now, this is a very telling moment. And I think one that is subtle but just hammers home what has been one of the central themes of this season, which is this patriarchy, both obvious and subtle, like ingrained and kind of the way it surrounds everybody. She's giving these orders like a queen, like a ruler, like someone in charge. And when that happens in this episode, when a woman is giving orders, specifically Otto in this case, reacting to it, they don't react as if a ruler has given them orders. What he does is he deflects and immediately moves the conversation to something he's more comfortable with. He says, you look so much like your mother in certain lights. Instead of, yes, your grace, I heard you, I followed you. And it's felt like such a real and relatable moment because he's not able to be comfortable with the idea of a woman ruling. We've seen it in everything he's done up to this point, and that includes his own fucking daughter. He can't be subservient in this moment, even though that's the fucking queen talking to him.
And it's so well delivered. Rhys Ifans is so good. We all knew we wanted him to come back. It was so great to see him come back. It's really creepy too, because now she's old. Yeah. And the mother was like his lover. There's so much to it. It's infantilizing. It's creepy. Not only that, I think the saddest thing about this is that Alicent is giving all these orders and telling how it's going to go. But the saddest thing is she is just enacting the plan that Otto wanted.
Yeah.
Like, sure, maybe she's going to say, don't kill Rhaenyra, but Otto doesn't care. Like, she is putting Aegon on the crown. She is usurping the throne. It's really sad because even in this moment of power, she is actually still just being manipulated by him.
It's so internalized, the way this system works. I mean, Rhaenys was exactly right. You're not trying to destroy the prison. You want to live in the cell but have more views. That's it. Larys comes to see Alicent. And he's very excited because he has some intel and he knows that it's something that Alicent's going to want to hear, and we now discover the price tag of such information. It is Alicent has to degrade herself, has to show her feet to this man as
guest directed by Quentin Tarantino
himself. Yes, and Larys tells Alicent, okay, Otto found Aegon first because of Myssaria's web of spies. Alicent's lady-in-waiting is one of her agents. And Larys suggests assassinating Mysaria. Now let me see your feet. Now, this again is, on the one hand, on surface level, right? This is shocking. It is surprising, considering in the books, the fictional historians are always wondering, oh, what made the enigmatic Larys Strong tick? What was it that motivated him? Now we know, right? On the other hand, on a deeper, really more substantial and real level, the fact that he feels comfortable doing this is another expression of how deeply misogynistic and patriarchal this society is. Because even though he has much less power in real terms than her, he could order, she could order his tongue out, his head cut off, tortured to death, his fucking house destroyed. She could order it all. But he understands that in this world, men have the power, and this is the relationship we have. No matter how powerful you are, I can still get you to do this thing that I want in a way
and that's really the fetish, honestly.
That is really the fetish. It is the power.
Over her. Yeah,
it's the power.
It all ties in. This is such an interesting episode for Alicent because it shows that the way that Otto treated her and sold her and used her essentially just established every relationship she would ever have with men, whether it was personal or business. She almost doesn't seem to realize that she could just kill Laris. She could literally kill him. He could tell her the information and she could kill him. How long has this been going on for? Is this what she was doing when she went there for the dinner? Is this something he did later because he'd killed those people and he said it was in her name? Also, we get a couple of moments this episode that seem to confirm or at least imply that Criston and Alicent have been having a sexual relationship, or at least in some kind of romantic relationship. She says, for all the love you have to me as your queen. And she's like right up close in his face when she sends him to go and get Aegon. So first of all, boo to Criston because you're a hypocrite.
I hate
What
him.
about sleeping with Rhaenyra? Like, chill out.
I hate that guy so much.
But also like another situation where she's essentially been manipulated. She gave Criston she let him keep his honor while dishonoring him by apparently being in this relationship. She's now giving him more power. All these things when he has not been a loyal or good person. He murdered Lyman Beesbury just in the council chambers. He's a wild card, but men have the power. She thinks she is using him as a tool when really she is once again being used. And it is just, it's heartbreaking stuff, man. And Olivia just makes the character so much more complex than a victim. It's more just like a really interesting expression of like internalized misogyny and the way it kind of
she's
manifests.
She's acting in a way and according to the choices that she thinks she has without, again, to Rhaenys's point, without fully understanding how much power she has. Like she will come to regret putting Aegon on the throne. She will. And she just will. She will only later, this is me theorizing, she will only much later truly understand how much power she gave away in that moment. She thinks like, oh, I'm his mother. I'm going to influence him. This shit is out of your control.
Yeah.
Already now it's out of your control, but it's going to be almost completely out of your control as soon as he's crowned.
And the irony is she could literally sit on that throne as Queen Regent if she wanted to, or just Queen. That's the funniest thing. She is currently the most powerful person in the whole...
Otto, you're under arrest.
Yeah.
Let's call a great council and get the realm to like
and guess
vote
who
on
else
it now.
Is coming? It's Rhaenyra and
Right.
it's Daemon, and we're all going to find a way to rule together. It probably wouldn't last very long, but as we know, most of the Targaryen rulers do not last very long in the history, so you could have at least given it a try, babe. But instead, give it to Aegon. Oh my God, you're an idiot. He's a sociopath. Yeah. And they do such a brilliant moment of showing the horrors of what he could potentially wreak coming up. So
it's the moment of Aegon's ascension. Sir Eric springs Rhaenys from her room saying, I'm not going to let this usurpation stand. We see in a quick snippet that Larys's men have hit the White Worm's headquarters and it's in flames, although we don't see a body, so I would...
Miss Sarah, she slithered
away. She slithered away. Rhaenys and Eric are kind of rushing through the city, but then they get caught up in the crowds that are heading to the Dragon Pit. They're being herded there really by all the City Watch guards because they want as many people to see this as absolutely possible. So Rhaenys ends up in the Dragon Pit. Meanwhile, Alicent and Aegon are riding there in their Uber carriage, and Alicent is again here is that moment again, right, where Alicent as the queen is telling Aegon what she wants. She's saying, listen, we're not going to make war against Rhaenyra. We're going to try to make peace. I want you to rule with mercy. And then Aegon's just like, do you think Dad loved me? It's like, we're talking business. Will you literally pull your pants up and understand that a lot has been done to put you on the throne today. Mm-hmm. We need to talk business right now, not work through your fucking daddy issues. But of course, and it's interesting as well that Aegon sees through all this. He's like, listen, my dad, first of all, I could tell he didn't like me. And second of all, he could have changed his mind about who he wanted to be his heir any time over the last 20 years. He never did. Now he did it in with his last breath. Okay. And anyway. In like a good, like scary sociopath moment, the only thing that he seems to interest him or make him feel like it's worthwhile is when he gets the cat's paw blade and he's just looking at the knife. It's the feeling of power, and we get to see him have it again in a moment, and it's all going to end badly. You just know it. It's going to end quite badly. So Aegon is anointed king. Criston Cole puts the fucking crown of Aegon the
Whose
Conqueror
job is
on
that?
his head.
How's that his job?
Pretty wild stuff. Aegon draws black fire from its scabbard. He holds it aloft. The people, it's, to be fair, a very, very mild applause that breaks out.
But you can see in his eye, he feels that little moment of power
He's
when he's like
very
pumping
excited
it
by
in
it.
his.
And it's phallic too, the
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
thing of the symbology.
He's realizing that he is like now the most powerful man on earth, which as like a regular rapist is probably like the best feeling in the world.
And then here is the moment. Boom. There's the floor explodes. Untold scores of people fall into the hole or are crushed by the kind of explosion of rubble and rock and a cloud of dust that comes up as Rhaenys's dragon emerges from the hole. She's on the back of it. The dragon looks at everybody on the dais there. Rhaenys locks eyes with Alicent, and Meleys roars, but no flames, and then escapes. She could have ended it right there, but she doesn't. We should talk about this. Let's start there.
Cersei would have said Dracarys. They
Cersei
would have
said
Dracarys.
Now, here's I'm as frustrated as anyone. And I'm sure Daemon and Rhaenyra are going to be absolutely beside themselves. That said, Cersei would have done so because to do it would have immediately made her queen. Mm-hmm. Right? Rhaenys is in a much more complicated position. She does that, and it doesn't necessarily end the war. The Hightowers have a huge fucking army that they could call, and they're not going to just lay down. And so she's in this place where, okay, I do this. I start a war. Is it my war to start? Do people see me as a hero or a villain? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Which side wins? I've done my job by escaping, and what comes after that is really like above my pay grade. Now, again, if it was Cersei would have done it because immediately she's queen. If Rhaenys does it, it's kind of unclear what happens. We would think that the war would be over, and certainly the leadership would have been decapitated. But again, House Hightower is not going to just fucking lay down. The supporters of the Greens are probably not just going to lay down. And Rhaenyra still has the problem of lots of dragons, not a lot of riders, not a lot of foot soldiers to take this country.
No,
I don't know. It's complicated though, but it's so frustrating because you're like, just fucking do it. Do it.
Like, fucking do it. I love Olivia Cook, and I feel a lot of empathy for Alicent, but I was still like, please just burn them. Even Helena, I'm like justice for Helena, but I think you raise a really, really good point. Also, something that I think is kind of hard when we think about it in Game of Thrones term. Obviously, like we think about Cersei blowing up, the sept and everything. And we think about, but the other thing, like you made a great point, right? This isn't really a world where it's just like Daenerys on a dragon and everyone's going to bow down to you because you have a dragon. If Rhaenys kills them, there's just other dragons. Like, it's not like the Hightowers are not going to be like, oh no, like, dragons. Like, they're going to be like, well, you just killed our whole family and ended our one claim. And we know the Hightowers are.
And you're a kinslayer now, too.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think the history books, I actually think the two things that you hit on that I hadn't really thought about until this conversation is the history books. How are you remembered? That is such a huge
it would have been
part
brutal.
Of this. And it would have been
ruthless. It would have been ruthless towards her.
Or the royal, like whatever it would be, like the Targaryen slayer, because also, like you said, not only did you kill a king, but you killed your kin, which is like the worst thing you can do. And then on top of that, she still has family that she loves who would immediately be put in danger by that choice. And I think that is a very interesting feeling. I think, if I'm not mistaken, in the post-credits, behind-the-scenes stuff, one of the creators of the show also mentioned, like, they really felt like it was something that was a mother looking on a mother and being like, I don't want to kill your children. Like, I've been through that. Like, I don't want you to have to go through that. But I think you touched on some really good things. I think this idea of legacy and how you would be remembered, and then the reality of what that would have been and how it would have actually ended up playing out is so different to that kind of cathartic classic Game of Thrones ending where you just red wedding it, or you just like kill a bunch of people, right?
It's like Jaime Lannister, right? He did the most heroic thing he had ever done in his life by killing Aerys the Mad King, right?
Yep.
That was that was the right thing to do.
Unquestionably.
And he was
he saved so many lives.
Became a true hero, the one that he'd always pretended to be, the kind of like hero that like they sing songs about. And he was treated as a pariah for his entire life after. A joke. Broke his oath, killed the king. No one trusts him. No one, like, here is the most good thing he has ever done, and no one will ever give him the credit for it. It is seen as a truly evil, bad thing that he did.
I know it's not, but I think about that episode with him and Brienne so much in the tub when he tells her for the first time the
so
truth.
Incredible.
Oof, that is just one of the most heartbreaking scenes on TV, and it's so good. And that really speaks to what I think is one of the best things that House of the Dragon is carrying over from Game of Thrones, which is this idea of having characters who do terrible things, but who are complex and who are human and who are not two-dimensional and who can exist on the side of both right and wrong and disgusting and noble. And I feel like they're really bringing that in a very interesting way. But I am like so interested to see. I love Rhaenys. I think
she's my favorite character right now, honestly.
Make her the queen. Like, I am here for it. Give her justice. But like, I want to know how that plays out. Because I feel like that in its own, that could have been a bottle episode in its own, but we're about to go into the finale.
Well,
so,
listen,
like, how does it play out?
If her next stop is Dragonstone, right?
Yep.
Bringing the news of what has occurred, they're going to say, okay, how'd you get out? Number one. Number two, and then you just flew away? Mm-hmm. You know, there's going to be some kind of a reckoning, and she's going to have to answer for that. But again, I think that her position is a lot more complex than it appears to be.
Okay, I want to ask you one question, and this is going to be a classic me asking you a question you can't answer, right? Because I'm not going to be specific because I don't want to do any spoilers. Yeah. But I've enjoyed so much reading about the histories and reading stuff. How closely in the finale do you think that they're going to stick to what we know of the books and what happens after Aegon is anointed?
I mean, it's been pretty much on book up until now. Obviously, the dragon coming out of the dragon pit is nowhere in the books, and you have to imagine that that's not them filling in details. That's an ad, right? That's not something that actually happened, but the historians ignored, because you would imagine that's pretty hard to ignore. A dragon bursting out of
There would
the
at least be rumors about it.
Yeah,
there would at least be like one funny song.
Yeah, you know, that news is getting out. So I have to imagine that's an ad, but overall, I think it's going to be pretty much what we know from the books.
Yeah. I'm very excited
with a lot of color added.